Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kevin, a business analyst, and together with Melissa, our human resources consultant, Brian, a market consultant, and Jodi, our business advisor, we are Fern Consultancy Agency. Today, we will be providing a critical analysis of Baldwin manufacturing over the past 8 years. This will highlight critical events, company strategies, company mistakes, ethical dilemmas, and executive shakeup. We will also provide a competitor/market analysis and potential future performance. Starting with critical events, if you have a look at product segments, there are 5 distinct areas: low-end, traditional, high-end, performance, and size. Within the first 3 years of analysis, Baldwin has removed themselves from both performance and size, continuing to focus heavily on high-end, grey, traditional, orange, and low-end blue segments. If you have a look at market shares, you can see the consistency in our third year of analysis, where again Baldwin has removed themselves from performance and size, leaving a steady fluctuation between the remaining 3 and a slow decrease in overall market share. This leads us onto Baldwin's company strategy. Baldwin has been running with a cost leader with product lifestyle focus, which has been used for the past 8 years with little to no deviation. The overall strategy is to gain a competitive advantage through keeping pricing low, R&D, production, and material costs to a minimum. Removing themselves from performance and size gives them more time to focus on the remaining 3, where products are introduced in high-end, mature in traditional, and end in low-end. Having a look at the table on the right-hand side, this shows which products have been introduced, moved, and retired within the last 8 years. Following the overall strategy, by the end of the third year, Baldwin has removed themselves from size and performance, along with introducing Baza, one of their new products. After that, in the 6th year of analysis, they also introduced Bison, which is also in the high-end segment, which will hopefully eventually drift into traditional and low-end. Lastly, I'm going to be talking about company mistakes. We have analysed a few decisions made by Baldwin over the past 8 years which have not aided in giving a strong competitive advantage. Firstly, dividend released. Baldwin released dividend in 2021, or our 4th year of analysis, but still suffered a small decrease in share pricing. They did resolve this issue by ensuring they didn't release more dividend until 2024, or when they made a yearly profit. Sales forecasting. Another major mistake we analysed was the inconsistency in sales forecasting, where some of Baldwin's products were constantly stocking out, while others had excessive inventory. This issue can be minimised through further research into the market. Lastly, financing. Baldwin has had some difficulty with cash positioning over the last 8 years. They have needed emergency loans in some years and had excessively high cash levels in others. Again, this can be resolved by a more accurate sales forecasting and further research into the market. I will now pass you on to Melissa, who will talk about ethical considerations.
Thanks, Kevin. My name is Melissa Wood and I'm the Human Resource Advisor for Fern Consultancy Agency. Ethical considerations Baldwin Manufacturing have faced over the past 8 years are that Baldwin chose to be ethical with labour negotiations. They chose not to make labour prices too high so that they would not impact on competitors' performance. Baldwin faced strikes because of this. Baldwin have used total quality management to reduce administration costs. This created a reduction of staff in Baldwin's administration department. Also, increases to automation have also happened over the last 8 years, which will lead to an increase in job loss for production staff at Baldwin Manufacturing. Ethics have impacted the company and have been taken into consideration when Baldwin Manufacturing's decision making. Baldwin stakeholders were considered when faced with an ethical dilemma. Baldwin did not increase labour costs to extremes when determining their labour costing price. The stakeholders were considered. Also, Baldwin have also considered the impacts of increasing job loss from increasing automation and reducing administration costs. However, stakeholders would prefer to make a profit. Next up is the analysis of the executive shakeup. Baldwin's results have shown an improvement to profits after the executive shakeup. Baldwin Manufacturing started to make a profit from 2023. This can be seen on the graph of profits. However, in 2025, you can see that Baldwin's made a huge loss. Baldwin's strategy was longer term, so it would start to see improved results around the time of the executive shakeup, because their products have been aligned in the high-end, low-end, and traditional segments, which is part of their strategy. The new executive previously worked for Chester. Between 2017 and 2019, Chester were making profits, but this declined in the year 2020, just before the executive shakeup. This can be seen on the graph of Chester's profits. The new executive also added a new perspective on current strategies along with industry experience in the production, selling, and marketing of sensors. Chester's tactics and methods of working out things such as forecasting, marketing spends, and their labour negotiation tactics. The losses from the executive shakeup were an in-depth knowledge of the company's past performance and a strong relationship and trust with other executives in Baldwin. The reasons for the improvements were that Baldwin's strategy was longer term, therefore making profits were going to happen whether or not the executive shakeup had. The reasons for the decline in results in 2025 were that Baldwin got a $3.1 million emergency loan through lack of financing and retiring $7 million worth of long-term debt early. Baldwin's strategy was the cost leader with product life cycle focus. They are targeting the high-end, traditional, and low-end segments, and the company will gain a competitive advantage by keeping research and development, production, and material cost to a minimum, enabling it to compete on the basis of price. The idea behind the strategy, choice of cost leader with product lifecycle focus, will allow the company to reap sales for many years on each new product, which is introduced into the high-end segment. Then products will begin their lives in the high-end, mature into traditional, and finish as low-end products, enabling research and development costs to be kept to a minimum. Baldwin's strategy adjustments were made towards the end of 2021, where Baldwin aimed to make a profit as all success measured relied on this. So research and development costs were reduced to the absolute minimum, as well as marketing costs. Capacity was sold in products that were being phased out, such as Bold. The impact of Baldwin's strategy changes were that Baldwin stopped issuing dividends whilst not making a profit. Baldwin stopped financing and investing money into its products for the longer term, and they started focusing on making a profit and not how this would impact them in the future, such as poor customer survey scores on products and low customer awareness, as they were not investing enough on marketing their products. Thanks. It's now over to Brian.
Thanks, Mel. Good day, everyone. My name is Brian Chang, and I'm the market consultant for the Fern Consultancy Agency. Today I'm going to be analyzing the best and worst companies in the industry and how Baldwin can learn from them. I believe in order to best improve the Baldwin company, it is imperative to look towards other competitors in the industry and ultimately what led to their success or what led to their downfall. A quick overview of the industry after 2025 reveals Ferris and Digby as clear industry leaders in market share, cumulative profits, market capitalization, stock prices, and all other financial indicators. Upon further analysis of these companies, we can pinpoint the reasons for their success. Mainly, maintaining a clear focus strategy from start to end, maintaining market share in all product segments, effective R&D in order to ensure each product in each segment has been allocated efficiently to the customer's major purchasing criteria. It is worth mentioning as well that these two companies had the highest capital expenditure throughout the entire 8-year tenure in both production and marketing, while still effectively achieving high contribution margins on all their products. On the other hand, the worst performing company in history has been Erie, recording the biggest cumulative loss over their 8-year tenure. The clear differentiator between Erie and the better performing companies is that Erie suffers from a lack of clear company strategy and focus. This is apparent as in their first few years of operations, the company produced a new product every year whilst eliminating an older product which was still producing and performing in the market, whilst the newer product which was introduced had no real impact in an already established market. The company initially took a niche product strategy focusing on the high, size, and performance product categories. However, by the 5th year of operating, the company took a radically different approach, eliminating the products from 6 to 4, and solely focusing on high and performance products. At this point, the company had 3 products in the high segment and just 1 in performance. By the 7th year of operating, the company had focused all their 4 products into the high segment, and by the last year, the company had just 3 products, 1 in high, and interestingly now, 2 products in the traditional segment. While specializing in niche market segments, this results in a loss of market share in the other product segments where they could have operated in. The target segments that Erie chose to target were already highly competitive, with majority of the market share taken by Digby. Another point of note is that Erie ineffectively allocated their resources. In an effort to minimize costs, Erie had the lowest company capital expenditure on R&D and marketing in the target segment where ideal positioning and age of the product is key, resulting in low customer service scores. However, we can see high capital expenditures on the automation of 2 of their products, which had these low customer service scores, and Erie was unable to effectively sell these products, resulting in low contribution margins. In comparison to these companies, Baldwin has taken a similar niche approach to Erie, focusing on the traditional, low-end, and high product segments, all of which are highly competitive product segments, losing out on any potential market share in the performance and size segments, which were noticeably not as competitive. Now, Baldwin had experienced issues early on in the years of operating, however in the recent years they've begun to turn a profit. Early on, their products suffered from a low customer service score, where their resources in R&D had not been allocated efficiently, mainly in the traditional and low-end segment. For the traditional segment, their product had become increasingly older, way past the ideal age, which is the most important customer purchasing criteria, and in the low segment, the product was actually the second most expensive product in a segment where price is the most important criteria. So in conclusion, on comparison with the other competitors in the industry, the lower performing companies had fewer products in fewer product segments, resulting in a loss in potential market share. The products that Baldwin focused on were not designed efficiently for the customer's purchasing criteria, resulting in lower customer survey scores and subsequently lower market shares. Therefore, we have 2 recommendations from Baldwin moving forward. 1, either maintain products in all market segments to acquire as much potential market share as possible, or allocate their resources more efficiently to the target segments that they have chosen. It's important to continually conduct an in-depth competitor analysis to see which segments your competitors have chosen to focus on and where you should best focus your efforts to achieve a better market share. I'll now hand it over to Jodi. Thanks.
Thank you, Brian. Hello, everyone. I'm Jodi, the business advisor at Fern Consultants. To begin, we can see Baldwin's current position on the perceptual map is due to the company sticking to their long-term strategy as a cost leader with product life cycle focus. The company has set lower prices than most of its competitors and has chosen not to focus on size and performance segments. The size of the circles in this diagram is reflective of market share. With this current strategy, the company has missed out on potential sales to its competition. Losses have occurred as a result of forecasting issues as well as a combination of costs being too high and prices too low. We have come up with some areas of business that require focus to improve the company performance and start producing profits. So in the last year, Baldwin experienced an emergency loan. To maintain the company's strategy, financing should be occurring through the long-term bond issues, only selling equity when necessary. Over the next few years, it is recommended to finance through bonds to the maximum capability and invest back into the company. Issuing stock at this stage is unlikely to be beneficial as the company's attractiveness to potential investors is relatively low, with the company being in financial distress. Debt financing generally offers lower cost of capital due to its tax deductibility. Bondholders will lend total amounts up to 80% of the value of your plant and equipment. So based on your current levels of plant and equipment, the company can borrow approximately $50.6 million to be used for investments. When introducing the high-end products into the market, it is recommended to release them in the ideal position. So specific spending in R&D is important to meet consumers' expectations. The products released every 2 years need to be the best on the market. Research shows that size, performance, and age of the product in the high-end segments are the most important to consumers. Pricing is less important, so dropping the pricing and having a small margin won't necessarily increase sales. The low-end products need to meet customer expectations to increase customer survey scores. Age is vital, and the products currently being sold are considerably too old. The upgrades to these products should be done within the same year as not to miss out on potential sales. The budget for R&D for the low-end product can be small, just enough to keep up with consumer demand. Investing in automation increases contribution margin and thus profitability, while new products rob competitors of market share. It is recommended to use the funds from debt issuance to slowly increase automation especially in the low end and traditional products. This eventually will pay off by reducing labour costs and minimising any impacts from labour strikes. In the marketing department, spending on customer awareness is noticeably lower than Baldwin's competitors, causing the customer to lose out on sales. Even though it is important to keep costs low, the company needs to increase marketing spend to maintain competitive. As the company is focusing on low, traditional and high-end products, different marketing strategies will need to be established to optimize the reach and frequency of the promo spend. For the low-end and traditional products, print media and direct mail are the best segments to target. High-end really benefit from promotion through trade shows. So, moving on to forecasting, the marketing and production departments need to work in congruence. Baldwin has had issues with holding too much stock in some years to stocking out of almost all products in other years. Fern Consulting has found that basing forecasting around market share is a consistent way to predict future sales. An example of this is taking the total industry demand for the product segment, multiplying it by the segment's expected growth rate, and then dividing this by the company's expected market share for that segment. Using this method will allow the company to forecast more accurately and avoid missing out on potential sales. In summary, it is noticeable that Baldwin has struggled over the past 8 years in the industry, with competing companies such as Digby and Ferris dominating and holding the majority market share. It is vital that Baldwin stays competitive to establish the company as a market player and begin making profits. As outlined by my colleagues, the biggest mistakes Baldwin has made includes issuing dividends without making profits, lack of financing, as well as stockouts and overstocks. Also discussed is the ethical issue of increasing automation, reducing labour needs. To combat these issues, recommendations have been made to issue long-term bonds and invest in R&D, marketing and automation. Training the marketing and production departments to improve forecasting will also ensure results. By implementing these solutions, profits will begin to follow for Baldwin. Thank you, and any questions?